boom, boom, thud, thud, swish, swish, crunch, crunch, zip, zip, ah, b, k, d, e, f, g, h, I, j, k, l, m, n, o, p, k, k, qu, r, s, t, v, w, z, I, z, a, 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 I, E, E, I, 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 O, 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 U, ooh, ooh, ooh. Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calling to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over again, naming your place in the family of things. This is a passage of the Atlanta Compromise speech by Booker T. Washington. A ship lost at sea for many days sighted a friendly vessel. From the mast of the unfortunate vessel was seen a signal, "Water, water, we die of thirst." The answer from the friendly vessel at once came back, "Cast down your buckets where you are." A second time the signal, "Water, water, send us water," ran up from the distressed vessel, and it was answered, "Cast down your buckets where you are." A third, a fourth, for a signal for water was answered, "Cast down your bucket where you are." The captain of the distressed vessel, at last heeding the injunction, cast down his bucket, and it came up full of fresh, sparkling water from the Amazon River. To those of my race who depend on bettering their condition in a foreign land, or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with Southern white man, who is their next-door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded. This is the Gettysburg Address. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether a nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives, that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or direct. The world will little know nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us living rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have fought for here thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to here be dedicated the great tasks remaining before us, that come from these honored dead, that we increase devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, for that this nation under God shall remain a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Whenever you hear the word witch brought up in conversation, what kind of images pop up into your head? I know that for me, before I listened to the Entitled Opinions episode on magic, God, and the supernatural, featuring Tanya Luhrmann, I thought of witches just like these, the classic depiction of the Wicked Witch of the West. Or maybe even I thought of the witches from Hocus Pocus. Witches like these that are portrayed in the most stereotypical sense. But they don't, however, portray how witches in modern society are really living in their true day-to-day lives, which is exactly what Tanya Luhrmann goes into on her podcast. Tanya Luhrmann studies anthropology and psychology, and she has written 2 books that talk about themes of religion and, like I said, supernatural, God, and even witchcraft, especially that is practiced in modern England. So this is kind of what we think of when we think of witches in England, right? Things of the past, tales, and, even witches being burned at things like the Salem witch trials. We honestly don't have a lot of positive connotations with witches in the modern world. We often think of past images. So the first book that she wrote is called The Persuasion of Witches. So this is a book that she wrote about the ways in which we are not rational and the people find evidence for the existence of things that we cannot see. And in England, a lot of these witches use these kind of thought processes to describe the natural world. So current witches, they practice supernatural forces and they use their minds to manipulate outcomes of spells. So it's more of she took an agnostic approach to finding out why people believe in what they believe and why they do what they do and why this concept of magic works. So these people, she observed people practicing magic in their day-to-day life, more like manifestations and using spells. And it transforms the user experience, not necessarily the world around us, because if we can't see it for our own eyes, but these people do see change in their lives. And this goes back to positive thinking. So the feeling of God or magic in this case is not actually a true experience technically. It's an experience that happens in our mind. And other people might not see it, but the people who practice magic and even religion do feel these effects. So the other book she wrote was When God Speaks Back. And this is about the American evangelical relationship with God. So this is another way of practicing these same kind of things where you use a religion or a God. So in the evangelicalism, having a nice, forgiving God and in their culture have had better positive outcomes. So where these faiths have a more positive, loving relationship with God and that he's forgiving, they see better life outcomes, and so do their societies in which they practice. And they have described close, intimate relationships with God And when they do report these close relationships with God, they do report being happier. So the same thing kind of goes with magic and positive thoughts. It's positive words and it increases your positive thoughts. It's pretty simple. The same thing happens with prayer. So it helps to replace the bad with good. And this kind of strays away from more critical thinking, but instead it is helpful thinking, which in situations where you're feeling down, this is helpful sometimes over critical thinking. So this is positive psychology. So if we replace critical with hopeful, you see a positive change in your life. And if you replace bad with good, you see a positive change in your life. Although other people around you might not feel this, you are feeling this, and it's an experience in your mind that is still a valid thing happening. And you will feel happier overall. Both witches and people who she studied who were evangelical Christians did report feeling happier. Their societies have better outcomes. And although there's negative stereotype of modern witches, it really is the same concept overall. Feeling positive and feeling happy. So is magic real? I don't know. Maybe we can't see the effects of it, but in the same sense, is religion real? I don't know. But we do know that whenever people are practicing any of these traditions, they do feel a more positive, happy life with better outcomes.